Good morning, church family. Good morning to all of our guests. You're our honored guests today. And for us at Myrtle Beach, it's just like heaven for all of you to be here. That beautiful singing. We're so glad to have you with us. We have had a fantastic weekend. I wish I had time to tell you about all the people in our congregation that was involved in this youth rally in some way, shape, or form. But I just want to tell you, I've never been so prouder of our church family and how you responded in this youth rally. And for the wonderful, precious youth that came our way. Some of you are still here today. We so appreciate so much even leading in our worship today. It's been such a blessing. But I've got to tell you, we have really been blessed with our speaker. He has really shown us God in a wonderful way. Lonnie Jones comes to us from Huntsville, Alabama. His wife is named Jackie. His son-in-law is Travis, and Lonnie Beth is his daughter. They have 2 grandchildren, Gunnar and Rowan. And he is a counselor, a private practice licensed professional counselor and consultant for 21 years. He's also a police chaplain for the SWAT team for 27 years. He is a man of all trades, but his favorite is preaching, and my favorite is listening to him. At this time, Lonnie Jones.
It has been a pleasure to be with you and to worship with you and share in this good weekend. I told them on Friday night that when a congregation goes to all the work that you've gone through to have guests into your home, and then they invite you to speak to their guests, that's an honorable thing. It's very humbling, and I appreciate the invitation and have enjoyed renewing some friendships and making some new friendships while I've been here. If you'd like to turn to 1 Corinthians 12, we'll spend a little time there. We started the weekend talking about our self-identity, spiritual self-identity. And usually when I get a chance to talk to an eclectic group or talk to the multi-generations, I like to talk about the church at Corinth. Because they had some real identity issues, and they had some real differences about how they assimilated into the body. The Apostle Paul never describes the church as an organization. He only describes it as an organism. And that's what we're going to talk about today, some things that he said should not take place in an organism. The city of Corinth had 250,000 free people. A metropolitan Huntsville area where I'm from, about 200,000 folks. If you count all the little areas around us, we might scare 250. But the city of Corinth had 250,000 free people. There were 400,000 slaves in the city of Corinth. And the gospel comes to the city of Corinth, and slave people and free people became Christians. So on any given Sunday morning, you might have the owned and the owners worshiping together. Extrapolate into the future, and a slave in those days sometimes was just like a job. They could own property, they could be married, they could have children. 10 years into the future, you've got a slave who's a Christian, married to a slave who's a Christian, and they have Christian children. He qualified to be an elder. Could you submit to your elder who was your slave? Could you submit to a slave who was an elder? In addition to this, you have people in the city of Corinth who were from the Jewish background. They'd grown up with this strong tradition of believing in the law of Moses. They had some things that were kind of enculturated in them. They had some real issues about modesty. God had told Moses, when you build an altar to me, you do not approach that altar with steps, you approach it with a ramp, lest the nakedness of your priests become uncovered. Now the Jewish people, when they heard God say something, sometimes they took it a little too far. They took it super literal. And their men were extremely modest. They wore tunics all the way down. Jewish men typically didn't run because they had to pull up their robes and uncover the lower parts of their legs. When you read any section of the New Testament where a Jewish man is running or God is pictured as running, they're really acting out of character, and that shows how important it is because they would not uncover the nakedness. The Gentiles, they didn't really have that issue. The city of Corinth hosted a game called the Isthmian Games. The city of Corinth is located on an isthmus, and they played the Isthmian Games, and precursor to the Olympics or part of the Olympics. Those games were played absolutely 100% in the nude. and you thought Under Armour made you uncomfortable, you'd give good money for a pair of Under Armour at the Olympian Games in Corinth. So imagine now on a typical Sunday morning in Corinth, the youth minister gets up and says, the youth group's going to play flag football on Saturday. I'm sorry, the Jewish kids won't play on Saturday. The youth group's going to play flag football on Monday. No shorts. Jewish kids go, right, no problem, we'll wear our football robes. Gentile kids, no problem, we're wearing shorts anyway. And now you've got this mess of what people expect. Jewish people had these real strict food laws. Typically in the Old Testament, in general terms, broad paintbrush, a Jewish person considered something unclean that was a predator or a scavenger. The only animals they could eat were typically ruminants, had a split hoof and chewed the cud. But in large terms, anything that ate meat, tore meat, or consumed meat, they couldn't eat. So it was a predator or a scavenger that they couldn't eat. The exception comes from the water. They could eat anything out of the water that had scales and fins. But those fish that eat other fish eat them whole. They don't chew them up. They couldn't eat sharks. They couldn't eat eels. They only could eat things with scales and fins. So again, it goes back to something about rending or tearing flesh or maybe even shedding blood. So the Jews wouldn't eat some of that stuff. Now, when a Jewish person saw something was unclean, it wasn't this idea of, oh, that looks nice, I wish I could have some. I've got food in my life that is unclean. I've had a series of intestinal surgeries. I'm missing some piping down here. I'm not allowed to eat bread. I'm restricted completely from bread. Shouldn't eat pasta, not supposed to have a lot of sugar. I see stuff I'm not supposed to eat, and that doesn't make me sick. I've never met a donut I couldn't be friends with. Man, if I could have that stuff, I'd take a Krispy Kreme donut. I'd put a little square of butter on it. I'd put it in the microwave, and I'd melt that butter. I'd take a Wendy's Frosty and put it right in the middle, and I'd drizzle some honey on it. And I'd eat it with a spoon, but I can't have that. So I see something I'm not supposed to have, I don't go, man, that's nasty. I go, man, I wish we could be friends again. A Jewish person saw something they considered to be unclean, it would turn their stomach. They would gag. Gentiles, not so much. They'd ate stuff with blood. They even drank some blood. They ate things that the Jewish people weren't allowed to eat. Can you imagine potluck Sunday at Corinth? You know, they come in, you know, look at that guy. You've got these people trying to worship together. Their cultures, their status in life, their expectations, their views of modesty. And Paul's trying to get these folks to behave like a body, like an organism, like something that seamlessly fits together. So when he talks to these people, he's going to start out and he's going to talk about different but same. And as we read this text, listen for that concept. Different, same, different, same, different, same. And then he's going to switch to many but one, many but one. And then in the many but one discussion, he's going to basically outline three things, three ridiculous things that should never happen in a body. And from those things that shouldn't happen, we're going to come up with some things that maybe we should do, and that'll be our lesson. 1 Corinthians 12. And I apologize about this cough. I've been fighting it for more than a week. 1 Corinthians 12:4. Different, same, different, same, different, same. There are diversities of gifts, different, but the same Spirit. There are differences of ministries, but the same Lord. There are diversities of activities, but it is the same God who works all in all. But the manifestation of the Spirit is given to each one for the profit of all. Now he's going to list some things. He's not going to use the word different, but he's going to use different things. For the manifestation of the Spirit is given to each one for the profit of all. For to one is given the word of wisdom through the Spirit. To another the word of knowledge through the same Spirit. Two different things, same Spirit. To another faith by the same Spirit. To another gifts of healing by the same Spirit. To another the working of miracles. To another prophecy. To another the discerning of spirits. To another different kind of tongues. And to another the interpretation of tongues. But one and the same Spirit works all these things, distributing to each one individually as he wills. Different, same, different, same, different, same. For the body is one, but has many members. But all of the members of that one body, being many, are one body, so also is Christ. For by one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, whether Jews or Greeks, whether slave or free. And have all been given to drink of the same Spirit. So Paul says, look, you're different, but you're the same. We have different roles, different jobs, different functions, but we're the same. In fact, not only are we different but same, look at it this way. Your body has many different parts, but it's still just one body. And that's the same way Christ is. In fact, it doesn't matter if you're a Jew or a Greek, a slave or a free, you're part of the body of Christ. Now, how did you get to be a body of Christ? You're baptized. If you're not baptized, you're not in the body. And if you're in the body, you were baptized. End of debate. Baptism is essential for salvation because there's no salvation under any name other than Jesus Christ, and you can't be saved unless you're a member of his body. And so Paul says, look, it doesn't matter if you're a Jew or a Gentile, a slave or a free, you got access to the body because you were baptized into the body. Now listen to this different but same, or the many but one. For in fact, the body is not one member but many. First ridiculous situation. If the foot should say, because I'm not a hand, I'm not of the body, is it therefore not of the body? And if the ear should say, because I'm not an eye, I'm not of the body, is it therefore not of the body? Your body members can't check out on you. One of your body members can't say, hey, I don't like my job, I quit. You ever had one of your body members quit on you? You ever sit with your leg curled up underneath you? It go to sleep, you stand up. You ever slip on that hand and try to answer the iPhone? Beat it with that dead stump. Listen, when one of your body members quit working, it affects everything in the system. If it's something as minor as having your eyes dilated, you're in trouble. Paul says, look, you can't look at your role in the body and say, look, I don't like my job, I quit. What's the most important part of your car? If you're a teenage girl, it's the brake, the pedal on the left. We could talk about the injectors, we could talk about the cam sensor, we could talk about the universal joint, we could talk about all kind of stuff about automotive theory. But if you get here on the highway and you get a pop-up thunderstorm and you don't have a $15 piece of rubber that does this, you'll park that car. Because the most important part of your car is the part you need to be working when it's not. And your job in the body is not specifically what you do is a job, but that you have a job. And just because you may not like it or may not be comfortable in it or may not think it's important. And by the way, leadership in the church is not up front out loud wearing a tie with a title. Leadership in the church is showing up. Leadership in the church is giving of your time, your money, and your energy. Leadership in the church is lending your voice to the song and your thoughts to the prayer. Leadership in the church is making a phone call or baking a pie. Leadership in the church is doing the part of the body that you need to do. So Paul says, look, a ridiculous situation in the body is you can't say, I don't like my job, I quit. So really what he's saying is we must accept our responsibility. We got to do that job that we do. My daughter plays volleyball. She played volleyball in high school, played volleyball in college. I cartoon a little bit, draw some stuff every now and then. She wanted me to make her a shirt. And to draw a volleyball, you need to draw 9 lines. You draw 3 lines this way, 3 lines that way, and 3 lines that way, it makes a volleyball. And she wanted me to draw a t-shirt that had 9 lines on it and wanted it to say, there is no I in team, but there is in unity. And then 9 statements. I care, I practice, I hustle, I show up, I dig, I pass. And she wanted the things that her job was to do on that team to make the team work. What is my job? I must accept my responsibility. Second ridiculous situation can't take place in the body. Verse 17. If the whole body were an eye, where would be the hearing? If the whole body were hearing, where would be the smelling? But now God has set the members, each one of them in the body, just as he pleased. And if they were all one member, where would the body be? Look, we can't all have the same function. If you were just an eye, you wouldn't be a body, you'd be a monster. If you were just an eye, you wouldn't be a body, you'd be a mutant. Now, if your teenage girl was just an eye, you could say, don't roll that eye at me, and it would work. But other than that, it would have no function to just be a single thing. And Paul says what you've got to have is you've got to have diversity in the body because we have different functions, we have different... Number one, you accept your responsibility. This is about accepting our limitations. There's some things I'm not designed to do, and because I'm not designed to do them, there's things I'm designed to do. When Jackie and I moved to Huntsville, Alabama, I think I was 21 and she was 18 or 19. And we were there at the church, and it was a big congregation that we were working there, and we were just kids. One day after services, Mary Chun, I think her children go to church in Cary, We got some folks here from Cary. Mary Chun said, hey, we're going to invite you guys to our house for dinner. Now, me being a country boy, I thought, well, we're going to be there a long time because we ate dinner after dark at my house. But she meant lunch. But we went to their house. Her husband was the executive vice president for Chrysler. And we go to this big house in North Huntsville. As we walk in this big house, a bigger house than I'd ever seen, she said, and we're going to have dinner in the formal dining room. I'd never been in a formal dining room. The Jones family had one room we ate in. If you didn't eat in that room, you ate on a TV tray and watched wrestling, okay? I mean, that's what we did growing up. But we walk around the corner, and here's this big, beautiful room. Got a big china cabinet, chandelier. Got a hardwood table, and there's 3-pronged forks and 4-pronged forks and long spoons and short spoons and fat spoons and skinny spoons and sharp knives and dull knives and butter knives and serrated knives and dishes and plates and cups and saucers. And I thought, are we going to eat? Are we going to fight? I said, there's enough hardware on this table, I could take over a small third world country. And I'm looking at all this stuff, and Jackie leans into me and says, you will not embarrass me. I said, what am I supposed to do? She said, you eat what Miss Chun eats with what Miss Chun eats it with. I said, what if I don't like it? She said, you will not embarrass me. So I sat down at the table and kind of looked at Miss Chun, and it's really not, not rocket science. You start on the outside, work on the inside, and we survived. We're still married. Why in the world do you put all that stuff on the table? You ever tried to eat soup with a fork? You ever tried to eat a good steak with a spoon? They asked this old boy in Arkansas, they said, why do you put peas on your honey? Or honey on your peas? He said, it doesn't taste very good, but it keeps them on my knife. Well, there's a problem already. You have this stuff on the table because it has a different job. And God has set the members just as He pleased. And you've got a job to do on this table. And you're in this town and in this church because you got a place on the table. And we get so worried about what we're not that we fail to accept and function and do the job that we're supposed to do. Years ago, I was taking kids out to do some adventure-based stuff at a rock quarry in Huntsville called Three Caves. And I'd sign these permits. I'd take the kids that I was working with, and we'd do some rappelling. Well, the city fathers, the Huntsville Youth and Recreation Services, asked me would I consider taking inner city kids on these outdoor rope adventures. And I was a little uncomfortable with that. Nobody writes newspaper articles about the 15 kids you bring back. It's that one kid you leave out there and get you in the paper. And so I sort of declined. I said, but if you'll build me an indoor climbing wall, I'll donate some time to teach on it. And to climb a rock, when you solve a rock climbing puzzle, you use the same mental skills that you do when you do math. And we teach about friction, and we teach about trust. And one of the things we do in amateur rock climbing is we do a thing called top roping. Now, Troy and I, when we climb, we lead climb. But in top roping, you have a rope over an anchor. It ties to one end, and you've got it attached to you through a friction brake. And as the person climbs up, you draw in the slack, just kind of like fishing for people. And if they fall, there's not a dynamic fall. They just swing in place. That's why it's easy for amateurs to do, super safe. The ropes are bomb-proof strong. Your anchors are good. And so we had this set up as a top rope gym. We had this little indoor gym. We had these kids climbing. And I was working with a group from the Academy of Science and Foreign Languages doing a class called Science and PE. And we had a little kid come to the class who only had one arm. A little dude named Chris, missing his arm from about here down. Well, you can manipulate the artificial climbing holes, and we set up some routes that he could climb. But a big deal in our class is to teach this skill where you protect another climber. It's called belaying. And we teach the children to belay. They have to belay each other. And then on the fourth class, they have to belay one of their parents. So you have to invite mom and dad to rock climbing class, and your dad gets to climb or your mom gets to climb, and you're in charge of their safety, which is pretty cool. And you get a guy up in the air, and his son starts screaming at him, and you get him back on the ground. You say, hey, what was going on there? Well, my dad was on the wall, and there was a foothold there, and he wouldn't listen to me, and I was scared. I said, welcome to parenthood. I said, you've experienced what your parents experience every single day of their life. You did it for 35 seconds and you like to lost your mind. I said, give your dad a little grace when he yells at you in T-ball or he teaches you how to drive. And so we teach this it's super important to learn to belay in my class, get your belay certificate. So we're there, I got ropes hanging in the gym. I'm making kids raise water up and lower it down in a bucket without spilling it to get their rhythm right. And got ropes hanging everywhere, kids hanging everywhere. Somebody tugs on my harness. Mr. Lonnie, I need to learn to belay. And it's Chris, this one-armed kid. And I go, well, Chris, typically people use 2 hands to belay. And he said, well, typically I just have one. A little guy in the 7th grade, about my height. And he says this to me. Don't tell me what people with 2 hands can do. Tell me what I can do with the one hand I've got. And outside of this book, one of the 2 most significant things ever said to me in my life. A little 7th grade boy, 1 arm. Don't tell me what people with 2 hands can do. Tell me what I can do with the one hand I've got. Accept your responsibility and accept your limitations. Figure out who you are and what you aren't, and then go the other direction. And do that thing that you are custom designed to do. I got a lot of stuff that fits only me. I've got a little bow. It's 26 inches from axle to axle. I got a 26.5-inch draw length. There's not a man in this building that could shoot that bow because he'd be doing like this. He looked like Cupid. My buddy in Virginia that I hunt with says that he calls it the Ken and Barbie bow. He said, let me see that Ken and Barbie bow you carry around. It's not weird. It's not awful. It's not strange. That bow is customized. It's designed to do the thing for me. Same about my climbing harness. Same about my shotgun. Same thing about my rifle. Everything I have is designed for my use. And God has said, I've designed you for my use. Everything you are and everything you're not, I've custom designed you to do a job and have a place on my table. So number 1, we accept our responsibility. Number 2, we accept our limitations. And then the third thing that should not happen in a body. Verse 20. But now indeed there are many members, yet one body, and the eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you. Nor again the head to the feet, I have no need of you. No, much rather those members of the body which seem to be weaker are necessary. And those members of the body which we think are less honorable, on these we bestow greater honors, and our unpresentable parts have greater modesty. But our presentable parts have no need. But God composed the body, having given greater honor to the part which lacks it, that there should be no schism, that's a word for division. There should be no schism in the body, but that the members should have same care one for another. And if one member suffers, all the members suffer with it. And if one member is honored, all the members rejoice with it. Now you are the body of Christ and members individually. What Paul is really talking about here in this whole chapter is a term I use called corporate individuality. That's the closest Paul will get to saying it. Now you are the body of Christ, corporate, but members individually. Corporate individuality, that's like an oxymoron, like jumbo shrimp or Kentucky football. It's things that don't go together. So corporate individuality is this mindset that says, I see myself as a member of something larger than me. And a body member can't say, I don't like my job, I quit. And a body member can't say, I've got to be just like you and you've got to be just like me. And a body member can't look at another body member and say, you're not important. A body member can't look at another body member and say, you have too much needs. We don't need you. In fact, what happens is the body accepts its responsibility, we accept our limitations, and we accept each other. And what he really says here about corporate individuality is that because I'm me and you're you and we're connected to the body, we're connected to each other. And when one body part suffers, we all suffer with it. And one body part rejoices, we all rejoice with it. Mark Sanborn, a corporate psychologist, talks about attention, belonging, and support. If you don't have those 3 things in your company, in your family, on your baseball team, or in your church, you don't have a functional group of folks. Attention, belonging, and support is what we give to every individual. And Stephen, sometimes you guys want to do a little test. You get up in the pulpit and you say, everybody get a visitor's card out. Write down these 3 words: attention, belonging, and support. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best, give us a score. How much attention do you get from this group? How much belonging do you get from this group? How much support do you get from this group? Add your numbers up, do the math, you get an A, B, or a C. Now, to be fair, 2 weeks later, you go, hey, everybody get a visitor card out. Write down these 3 words: attention, belonging, and support. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best, how much attention have you given anybody this week? How much belonging did you show anybody this week? How much support did you show somebody this week? I find in systems that people who don't think they get enough attention don't give enough attention. I find that people who think it's important to be visited in the hospital should visit in the hospital. I think it's important that people who think they should be called upon call upon other people. But sometimes we get it out of whack. We want only one side of this thing to work. Everybody has to give attention, belonging, and support. I was at a little church in Burney, Missouri. Had uncharacteristically stayed over for a Sunday night. So I finished speaking, sitting in the back. The guys get up and they go to the table, and they've got the collection plates. Not the communion plate, but the collection plates. And they start handing them out. And as the plates go by, people are reaching in and taking stuff out. I'm in the back. I think I should have sat closer to the front. But when it got to me, they'd taken their church directory and put everybody's name and everybody's phone number in that dish. And as it went by you, you pull somebody out. And that week, that's a person you called. That's a person you prayed for. That's a person you invited to go have a milkshake or eat a hamburger with. And this little girl in the 7th grade might have the name of a 70-year-old lady. And this dude that's playing college ball might have the name of a family with 2 kids who are playing t-ball. He might go watch that game. And they made an intentional purpose to scramble their congregation. And instead of having a youth group and an oath group and a seniors group, they just had a body. They had an organism, not an organization. So the Apostle Paul writes and says, accept your responsibility, accept your limitations, and accept one another. And really, to do this justice, you got to keep reading. Because what he says is, everybody can't be an apostle, everybody can't be a prophet, everybody can't speak in tongues, everybody can't do these things. You really should desire the best gifts. And I show you a most excellent way. Don't let that number 13 get in your way when you read. Yet I show you a most excellent way, though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels and do not have love, I'm a sounding brass or a clanging cymbal. And though I have the gifts of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, though I have all faith so that I can remove mountains and don't have love, I'm nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned and do not have love, it profits me nothing. See, Paul says it really doesn't matter what your gift is. It doesn't matter if you're so eloquent you could speak with the tongue of an angel. If you don't speak because you love these people, then it doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter if you're so smart and you understand all the mysteries of the universe. If you don't use that knowledge because you love these people, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how philanthropic you are. If you gave all you had, or you gave your body to be burned and you didn't do it because you love these people, then it doesn't matter. And so Paul really says, you got to accept your responsibility, you got to accept your limitations, and you've got to accept one another. But the bottom line here, I don't care what your job is, you got to love these people. I mean, that's it. And I don't know what your job is, but if you're not doing what you're doing out of love for these people, if the mindset is not, I'm connected to Christ, and because I'm connected to Christ, I'm connected to you, then we're not doing our jobs right. Jackie and I got married. Jackie was 18. I was 21. And my brother didn't get married until he was 39. He's 19 months older than me. So my mom and dad essentially got an extra girl at their house. And then we go for several years. And then my brother shows up with this new girl. And for years it had been me and Mom and Dad and Gerald and Jackie on vacation and trips and different things. And then all of a sudden my brother starts showing up with this other girl. And my wife grew up in Velvet Ridge, Arkansas. She ride a horse bareback. She knows how to plow behind a mule. She picked strawberries as her summer job, swam in the creek, played softball, played basketball, played volleyball. Gerald's wife, Missy, thinks roughing it is a Holiday Inn without a pool. She doesn't like to sweat. She doesn't like to get dirty. When they were getting married, they were at the University Church of Christ in Montgomery, and standing on the stage, they've got these air vents on their stage. So I'm standing up there. They ask, are there rings present? Well, I dropped a penny in that air vent and looked real shocked. Missy didn't think that was funny, by the way. Let's just go straight up on record. Missy thought that's not funny at all. Well, they end up, having children. My brother is a little bit older than I am. I'm 56. And so he's got teenagers. He's got a 16-year-old daughter and a 14-year-old son now. I said, what have you done to yourself, son? But anyway, when they first were going to have their baby, their friends at church were having children, and they were naming them these exotic names like Armoire Chippendale and So I, as a good uncle, I suggested they name their daughter Enya and her middle name be Anna. So we could call her Enya Anna Jones. I thought that would rock. Missy was not amused. Did not think that was funny at all. I'm having fun at Missy's expense, okay? Missy's a charming lady. We get along fabulously. She's got a great sense of humor. I've been hosted in her home. She's been a guest in our home. When Lonnie Beth came along, Missy doted on her, bought her gold earrings, and tried to make a girl out of her. And she treats my parents like they're her parents. Missy's a fabulous person. But please understand, these are my rules. My personal feelings about Missy are irrelevant. She's connected to my brother. And because she is connected to my brother, she is connected to me. End of line. I don't have to evaluate anything other than she's Gerald's wife. Therefore, she has access to anything that she needs that I can provide. And without trying to sound like that guy, I would die for her or protect her with all the power of my being. And it has nothing to do with, I personally like her, but it has nothing to do with my personal feelings. She's connected to my brother. She's connected to me. You are connected to Christ. You are connected to me. I am connected to Christ. You're connected to me. It has nothing to do with my age, my shape, my weight, my color, my background, or the state I'm from. If I go to one of these things and it's a corporation, Jackie says, who's your contact person? Where are you staying? What's 2 contact numbers and where's the hotel? I start getting on a plane on Friday morning. She says, where are you going? I'm going to South Carolina. Church thing, you'll be fine. Not that she doesn't care about me, but she knows you will. And if I were to need anything or lack anything, she knows the body will take care of me. And that's the way it should be in this room. We're connected to Christ. We're connected to each other. Therefore, we are connected. 2 questions this morning. Number 1, are you a member of the body? If you're not a member of the body, you're not a baptized believer, then you're not connected like you should be. You still have a sin problem. That's the most important thing, is to solve that sin problem. If you're not a baptized believer, we invite you to be baptized this morning. We can study with you. We can pray with you. We can work this out so you understand the gospel plan of salvation. Second question is, if you are a baptized believer, have you accepted your responsibility? Have you accepted your limitations? Are you accepting of each other? And are you functioning like you should in the body? Because the thing that's keeping this body from being what it should be is you may not be doing your part. We'd like you to change that. The Lord's invitation is open. Stephen's going to come down front. If there's a need, he'll respond to it. God invites you to be part of the organism that is his body as we stand, as we sing.